I thought it'd be easiest to get the ceiling painted once I had things kind of put in their place, so I had more room on the floor to walk around and paint. I also thought it made sense to get the new lights installed. That way I didn't have to worry about marking up a new ceiling with pencil lines or anything like that. To get started, I took my laser line level and threw a straight line across the ceiling, equally spaced on the new wall, so I knew where all the lights needed to go on the one axis. Then I could take my tape measure off the far wall, and then measure between the light and get my hole locations for each of the lights. Then it was simple as drilling holes for the eye hooks and hanging some chains and plugging them in. Little did I know that these lights were going to be causing me a lot of video issues, which you can start to see here. I didn't notice this until I had gotten 4 of the lights hung, so it was a little frustrating to get that much work done just to see that these lights weren't going to work out. So after freaking out a little bit, I decided to take a break from these and try to figure out a better solution for the lighting, which I will cover a little later in the video. While I tried to figure out what I was going to do with the lighting, I had finally settled on a green color for this wall, so I got to painting it as well as the door into the garage. So now that I have all the walls painted, I can start getting things put back on the walls and get all this junk cleared out, so I can start getting paint on the ceiling. For anyone who's seen some of the earlier videos, you'll know that all of this wood was stacked back there in that corner. And I didn't really like having all of this lumber stored that way. It makes it really difficult to look through all the boards and kind of find the right board for the job. And I usually end up just figuring out the easiest one to get out that would work and not typically the best one that I could pick. And so looking around, I saw other people doing a lot of vertical storage, so I plan on putting all the vertical storage on this wall and moving the horizontal racks here for shorter offcut pieces, and then maybe a bin down here for random stuff. So I did build this platform out of 2x4s in Advantech. I thought it'd be enough space. I mean, that's only, 3.5 plus this Advantech, but some of these boards are actually cut long enough that they're rubbing on the ceiling up here. And so I'm gonna have to probably flip these on their sides to give me enough clearance. And I realized doing that I will actually need to get the ceiling in this area painted first, because I'm not gonna be able to get a roller up there once I have all that lumber up there. So I'm going to paint this section of the ceiling now, and then once that's done, I will get the vertical storage done to free up all of this space so I can move some things around. And then maybe I will hang my horizontal racks on this wall next to get things off of it. And then I can get things moved around to start patching and painting the ceiling. So the initial implementation's done. I still need to drill the holes in the pipes to put the eyelids and run some chain across. And I'll probably remove this pipe hanger because it's going to be in the way of the horizontal shelving I want to do on the left. And I'll put all that on that shelving. As you can see, don't have much room up top, and I actually nicked up the ceiling already putting the boards in, so that's fun. Probably also put another pipe hanger or two a little lower for shorter boards, but they're out of these hangers, so I'll have to wait till they get more before I can do that. With the wood out of the way and the ceiling painted, I could get started on trying to reassemble all of my dust collection. People will often tell you to not glue any of your pipes together, but to use duct tape instead, so you can reuse any of them later when you want to redo it, which I totally agree with. However, getting this tape off, especially after it's been on there a long time, is a nightmare. And my fingers were really hurting after peeling all this crap off. In some of the areas I just said screw it and didn't even peel it off. Usually when I'm doing my dust collection setups, I start at the dust collector, but I wasn't really sure how this was going to all lay out, so I wanted to start with the kind of one unmovable
spot, which was where this pipe hangs from the ceiling, since I wouldn't be able to move these hangers without a lot of work. Once I had the pipe laid down and the pipes dropped to where the tools are going to be, I had to kind of figure out how this layout was going to work with the joiner planer.
Alright, so after a lot of fiddling with this is kind of the layout I've come up with. Had to switch these two around, which I'm not sure if I like or not, but it makes this connection way nicer, as I can come down how I used to have it, which worked really well. And I can easily get to either one. Fits nicely. So I can shut off whatever one I'm not using. I will probably remake this connection, and instead of having it coming out straight, either put one 45 directly off of it or two 45s and then just flex at the end. That way I don't have this harsh droop here, which probably is killing suction on that one. But overall, I still have a decent amount of room when you're coming out the door. I can move this over a little bit, which will give me a little bit more clearance here. And the only thing I'll have to really worry about is the distance from the cutter heads and my workbench is about 6 feet. So if I ever need to joint anything longer than that, or if I have to plane anything, I think that sits higher, but we'll see. I'll just have to move the bench, which not a big deal. It's on the casters. And I think, let's see. So the planer sits at 33.5, and my workbench is at 34. So, to be honest, by the time it's all the way out here, it might work. We'll see. That, or I might even just shim the planer up an inch or half an inch. That way I never have to move the workbench when I'm planing material. But we'll see that and see if it becomes a problem before I do anything with it. So yeah, that is roughly the dust collection to the jointer planer, over, down to the table saw. So now we need to come out, wrap around, come down where that's going to be, and then I got to run one for the bandsaw, as well as I usually just have a long flexible hose that I can clean the shop up with, and so that will go maybe next to the bandsaw. We'll see, I haven't figured that one out yet.
With the joiner planer issue figured out, I could go ahead and finish the drops for the rest of the tools and get the dust collector itself hung. I'm using a French cleat system with 2x4s to hang the dust collector, and the French cleat that's going on the wall I'm making much longer than it needs to be. That way I have some flexibility on where the motor of the dust collector mounts, because I'm not quite sure how the dust collection pipe's going to come in and meet the cyclone separator at this point. Once I have that position figured out roughly, I can go ahead and get the air filter portion of the dust collector mounted. This French cleat is a little more involved because of the way that I have this Harbor Freight unit mounted. So you have to notch out the French cleat for the bolts, as well as cut this curve out on the piece as well, so that you can get the bag around the bottom of it. The previous time I did this, I didn't do this step, and it was a nightmare getting that bag on each time.
All right, I think we're ready for the first test of the dust collector. Got everything piped in. Just gotta hit the on button. Need to tidy up that wiring still, but just wanna make sure everything works. I'm short one blast gate, so I'm gonna have to make one up for the miter saw. But for now, I just have it taped off. And right now I just have what's gonna be the shop hose open. I'm gonna test it out. You can see how I zip tied the power cable, comes down I ended up, previously I had this hard pipe come all the way down and fastened to this table, but I had the aha moment to have it up here in a easy disconnect hose clamp. So if I ever need to cut something that's going to be wider and interfere with this pipe, I can either slide this loose out or disconnect it just to make that cut, so I'm not restricted in the width of the cut I'm going to make with the table saw. And then over here, this is kind of the setup we got going on for this. This is super nice because, you usually you're using the joiner and then the planer back to back. So with the blast gates right there like that, it's very easy to switch back and forth without moving around the shop a bunch. But with all that said, let's give her a whirl and hopefully nothing breaks.
Now that I had all the piping ran, I needed to add some blocking to the wall so I could affix this pipe. Otherwise, it would have eventually disconnected at the top. To get started, I took an offcut that I had from the dining table I built, and I went ahead and figured out what my two starting points needed to be so I could have a dado cut in the middle to house the zip tie that I was going to use to strap it to this block of wood. With that figured out, I could quickly cut that out on the table saw and then take my chisels and round over the edge so that it wasn't a 90-degree corner for the zip tie. After that was done, I went ahead and took my block plane and chamfered all the edges so it wasn't sharp corners, as well as taking my number 4 smoother and finishing the faces and backside of it so it was nice and smooth. Now that the piece is finished and ready to be installed, I could realize that it was too thick and I needed to cut off some material so that the pipe came down the wall parallel to the wall. Luckily, after cutting it to thickness, the zip ties still fit in there without me having to recut that dado. To get it mounted, I first zip tied and leveled the strapping to the wall, and then I went ahead and put screws through it and a piece of wood behind the wall to affix it to the wall. All right, so it's been about a month and a half from the fiasco with the other shop lights that you just saw, and this is my solution. Went with what everyone seems to go with online, the American green lights. I reached out to them, kind of explained my problem, and Jim over there was really nice in helping me out and explaining to me some of my issues, and assured me that their lights will not have any of those problems. And I can tell you just from kind of opening one up and looking at it, they are built a lot better than the other ones. Even if, visually they might not look as finished since, there's no diffuser here, but I do believe, I read somewhere that the diffusers can actually lower the CRI. So these are 95 CRI. The other ones I was looking at were 80. And these ones are dimmable. They're the only 95 CRI shop lights I could find that were also dimmable. So my first issue is he determined the best layout is to run them this way. And if you happen to watch my first video, you'll know that I arranged the lights to go this way, similar to how they were before I started my renovation. So essentially, all of my outlets that I put in the ceiling are not in great spots or necessarily close locations to these shop lights. So if I do run a power cable to these and don't hardwire them, there's going to be a lot of cable on the ceiling, which I'm not crazy about. Second problem is these don't come with any hanging hardware, so I'd have to buy all of the hardware to essentially, you fold these tabs up, and then I'd have to buy the chain and everything for that. Quick math, chain and the cable
I'm probably looking at close to $125 in supplies just to hang the lights. So I'm not loving that idea, and the heat maps that he did for this is based on these being surface mounted to the ceiling. So it would adjust the numbers a little bit. I don't think that'd be a big deal. But if I don't hang them, then 3 of the lights are going to be interfering, or at least 2 of the lights are going to be interfered with by the shop dust collection hose. I did some testing with just one of these cheap lights, and it doesn't seem to cast a super obvious shadow, so I'm just going to go with it. And worst case, maybe these 2 lights here I will actually hang from a chain and drop right below the dust collection pipe. And actually, I guess this one would also need dropped. Hopefully I don't have to do that, but we will see when we get there. So essentially, I'm not going to use the outlets that I spent days putting in, which sucks. And I'm going to have to run all new cable for these lights to link them all together, which also sucks. But I think in the end that will be a cleaner result. You're not going to see any of the cabling on the ceiling, which I really, really don't want. And I will tie them into the same circuit as this. So in theory, they'll all be switched still. And if I ever add any accent lighting or, any specific lighting or tool specific lighting, I'll still be able to use those outlets for that purpose. But all in all, I got about 15 receptacles in my ceiling for no good reason now. So I'm going to get started on marking out the ceiling to the dimensions that he laid out so I can get these hung. And then I will get into the attic and start running more electrical, I guess. All right, for layout, I'm using similar to what I was trying in the other video, the other lights. I am essentially, the blue tape has a black line on it where is out 2.5 feet per the design. And then I have my green light, my laser line level, basically connecting the two. Now what's really frustrating about this laser line level is it'll flash, as you can see, like it's doing for quite a while. But it'll flash when it's not level because it's got a self-leveling in it. So when it's not level, it'll flash, let you know it's not leveling, which is great. Except when you want to do weird stuff like this, where it's not going to be level, but you just want a straight line. There's no way to turn that off. So you kind of have to pause and wait for it to come back, which is super frustrating. I know this isn't what this is designed for, but it would be really nice if you could turn that feature off and kind of use it more freely, but it's what I got to deal with for now. Now I got to probably use a laser. I have one of those lasers that you push and it'll tell you how far the distance is, so I'll probably place that where it needs to be. I'll figure out where the first screw hole is from the center because the drawing has all the marks for the center. So I'll probably figure out where that is and then mark that down, measure from there down the line to where the next screw hole would be, work my way down, install the lights, and then rinse and repeat. All right, status update. So been using the laser to get the straight line down the ceiling, and then using this guy to dial in the distances from this wall for each screw. And I did that for this run, and I did it for this far run. Now I went ahead and put screws in each location that the light fixture is going to go in, and then I've ran nylon string basically around each screw, and then I've measured how far out I need to come for these middle 2 runs. So all I need to do now essentially is get this laser lined up where it goes, and then everywhere they intersect I know I need to put a screw. So these middle 2 should go really quick, and that'll guarantee that all of these line up and look uniform on the ceiling when I'm done. All right. All the drivers are hung. Took about 2 hours to do. Maybe 2.5. Now I got the pain in the butt part of running all the Romex to these and stapling that to the rafters above. Getting real sick of this attic. Okay, thank God. Got all the power wires ran. That sucked. The only thing worse than putting insulation in an attic is ripping that insulation back up in the middle of summer to run new wire and putting it back in the attic.
To finish the install on these lights is pretty straightforward. Once the power wires ran into the light, you can go ahead and wire nut it and the leads that come off of the light together, push those up in, connect the LED strips with the covers, screw that on, and you're good to go.
Welcome back. So my camera died while I was installing all of these and I didn't notice. But they are all done. We are ready to test it out. Fingers crossed.
And that look on my face is just sheer joy. It had taken me about probably 6 or 7 hours total to get these lights installed, between the additional wiring that I had to do that I wasn't planning on from not being able to use the outlets, to laying out where all the shop lights needed to be, installing the shop lights. And so to finally see it all lit up at this time, I think it was like 1 a.m. at this point, and I was exhausted. It was such a relief.
And I just have to say, these lights are so much better than the ones I was going to go with or any of the shop lights that I've used in the past. That feels good.
And that's going to do it for this one. I still have a lot of little odds and ends to do, but I'm probably just going to do those off camera. As you can see, I still need to do the second bit of lumber storage and sheet goods storage here on the side. I need to finish the trim on this wall as well as the windows over here, and also hang the air filter back up. But overall, it's looking pretty good. Definitely excited to get back on some projects. The next project I will be doing will be converting a crib that I made from the crib into a full bed now that neither of my kids need it. And then after that, I will be trying to build a hand tool cabinet for all of these hand tools to get them over by the workbench, as well as I have a treehouse that I'm getting ready to start back up on. And so if you're interested in seeing that, let me know in the comments and I will do some videos on that as well. Thanks for watching.